Hey everybody, this is Greg Petix, founder, curator, docent, and gift shop employee of the Petixonian Institute of Comic Book Studies. Today we're going to be looking at a very recent acquisition to the Petixonian Institute. In fact, this was just acquired yesterday. It's Mr. Incompleto by Josh Baer. And this is a strange comic, the origin of this. This had an edition a few years ago, and it was in black and white. So this is the new color edition that just came out relatively recently. This strange character, Mr. Incompleto. His crucifix necklace is always flying around his head. He's got a torso, which is a cigar chomping face on it. And we never see his face. It always has this weird hood. And it's a very strange character. Here we have a one-page introduction, Comics Within Comics by Josh Baer. And he's talking about in 2014, he had a comic called, Theth. And in the comic, the character Theth was in a store reading a comic book called Mr. Incompleto. And I don't know why, but he thought it would be great if at the same time he released a comic book called Mr. Incompleto. So at the same time that you could buy Theth, where he's reading this comic, you could also buy Mr. Incompleto and read the comic that Theth was reading, the comic within the comic. His publisher said, "You're a nut. No, just finish your comic." But later on, he couldn't get the idea out of his head, and Josh Baer made Mr. Incompleto. He printed it himself. So here we have a little title page. Some of the characters we'll see within. Josh Baer has this just really crazy, I don't know how to describe it. It's just like this ugly art style, but that's also very fun to look at. It's just, you'll see. It's just very strange. You might know Josh Baer. He's the mastermind behind, one of the masterminds behind All Time Comics, the superhero parody. And so much of Josh Baer's work is kind of rehashing comic books he read as a kid and liked when he was like a teenager, and just making these weird mashup crazy comics using his memories of these comics. So on this first page, we see the scene from Theth, where he's in a store and he picks up Mr. Incompleto and he's reading it. So now we start in on the story. It takes place in 1980. We're on the edge of the city. This red mist is flying around. Nobody knows why it's here. But just look at this art. It's just so I think he just uses a ballpoint pen, and it looks like watercolors for this newly colored edition. So we meet our hero, Mr. Incompleto, and he's in the process of making pancakes for his best buddy, his horse he lives with. Kind of looks like Sparkplug from the old comic strips. Always wears that little warming blanket. And all of a sudden, his breakfast is interrupted by the appearance of this guy, Farhawk. But if you're a comics nerd from the, who read comics in the 70s and 80s, it's obviously Starhawk from the Guardians of the Galaxy. Not the ones in the movies. For 20 years, the Guardians of the Galaxy was a totally different group. A superhero comic from Marvel that would pop up here and there. So he's kind of peeved at him for ruining his kitchen when he pops up. Kind of makes a mess. But he says, "I need your help. My colleague is traveling back in time to meet his former self, his younger self, and it's causing all this havoc in the time stream." So there's some serious stuff. So he goes off and he's got this weird little flying fist mobile. It kind of looks like a fist, but he's having a hard time navigating through the red mist. It's very thick. He's worried he's going to crash. Yeah, as you can see, just everything about this art is just so not how comic art should normally be, especially for superhero stuff. It's just, the colors are just insane and it's really bizarre. And characters change from panel to panel to where they're drawn. So he's flying over the city. You can see that red mist. I mean, he's stuck in it. And he does crash because the mist is so thick. So he's walking through the mist. He can barely see anything. And then we switch away to an hour before that. And we see young Chance Alfax, a happy teenager, you know, from 1980 America. But this guy is Chance Alfax from 1,000 years in the future. And he's come back in time to warn himself never to go into space. Because this guy was in suspended animation for 1,000 years in a spaceship. But they fucked up and they didn't put his brain to sleep. So he was kind of aware the whole time that he was stuck in the spaceship. And he basically went insane over and over. Hundreds of times he lost his mind. And it was just this miserable life. And even though his journey is over, that 1,000 years is over, his brain is scarred from it. So he wants to spare his younger self, and I guess by proxy himself, because he'll grow up to be him, this agony, this mental agonies. And so he's back in time trying to convince him. The kid's just like, this guy's crazy. What the fuck is he talking about? And, you know, he's kind of ranting. And while he's doing that, the kid kind of slips away. He's like, this guy's a freak. It's kind of scary. So Chance Alfax comes upon Mr. Incompleto, or vice versa. Mr. Incompleto runs into Chance, and he's trying to convince him to stop what he's doing. He's like, you know, you're messing up the whole universe. You know, time travel does that in science fiction stuff. He's also called Zero Sum Chance Alfax in the future. That's his, like, superhero name. And this guy is just unrepentant. He's like, I don't care what happens to the universe. I have to do this. You know, I won't stop. And they kind of have this debate about it. And it's kind of weird. So different than most, like, science fiction superhero stories like this. Mr. Incompleto comes around. Chance says, are you going to stand in my way? I could use your help. And Mr. Incompleto says, I'm with you. Let's go. Even though he went out there to warn him to stop what he's doing, because the whole universe could, you know, billions of people could die. So they go back to the Chance's house, and he's having this amazing nostalgic moment, like walking up his front steps that he grew up in 1,000 years before in his brain. And when he gets to the front door, Charlie O opens the door. And Charlie O is another doppelganger of the Guardians of the Galaxy. Charlie 27 was his name. Just this big, kind of massive, strong guy. So Chance Alfax attacks him with his mental powers, zaps him. And Mr. Incompleto is kind of holding back. And then this guy comes out, who is the doppelganger of the Guardians of the Galaxy member, Yondu, who you would know from the movies, but in the comics he was very different. A very different character. He's an archer. So then Mr. Incompleto comes out to help his buddy Chance. And he's trying to explain to these superhero guys, he's like, come on, he's got to do something. He's got a job to do. All of a sudden, he's like, totally went against his initial mission, and he's trying to help Chance do this. I really like these colors. They're just nuts. It's like a Technicolor yawn on the page. Like somebody puked up all these crazy colors. So these guys are chasing each other, fighting. Another one of the doppelgangers shows up. He can control, like, temperature, and he puts a freeze ray and Zero Sum. And they take him back to the future. They froze him, and then these superheroes from the future take him back. And Mr. Incompleto is left in his own time. So we meet even some more members of the superhero group. And they're kind of wondering what to do with him. They got him in a stasis ray, like a freeze ray, a paralysis ray, I guess. I don't know if this is nutty way he draws the technology, just like it looks like a little kid. So they're kind of debating about it, and he's, he can talk, so he kind of convinces them. He's just like, you got to let me go and let me figure this out. And they find out that the red mist has nothing to do with his time travel. So now they're just like, maybe we should let him go. Maybe he's right, some of the members, but some of them are like, no, you can't fuck with the time stream. Time travel's no good. Oh, man. This guy's just amazing. I don't have much Josh Byer. I want more now. There's some really good stuff. And then Farhawk shows up, the superhero from the beginning. And now he's got a totally different costume. And it appears that he's wearing Stardust's costume, the Fletcher Hanks character from the Golden Age of comics. Don't really get it. But he's not wearing that Starhawk costume anymore. I'm pretty sure that's Stardust's costume. And he says, guys, let him go. It'll be all right. And I guess Farhawk is always right. They're like, well, Farhawk tells us to let him go. We should do it. He's always right. So they let him go. And he gets to go back in time. So now we're back in 1980. And Mr. Incompleto is hanging out with the young Chance. And I like how they're holding hands while they talk. I also like how Chance is supposed to be this high school kid, but he looks like this middle-aged, really huge man. It's really weirdly drawn. So, he's trying to console the kid. He's like, I know it's a lot to take in. And the kid's like, I wasn't even planning on going out into space. I don't even know what the hell's going on. He's really confused. But then he says something like, my parents, what are they going to think when they come back? And he says that his father has a horrible temper. And so he's like freaking out because his dad's going to be home soon. Still, this red fog is a mystery. It's kind of a MacGuffin. I think the red fog really has nothing to do with anything. Some more amazing trippy artwork. So Zero Sum secret headquarters zaps him down, this ray, and he shows up again, along with all the other faux Guardians of the Galaxy. And once again, he's trying to convince Chance, to change the future. But then the father shows up, and he's yelling at everyone. He's like, what the hell are you doing in my house? What are you doing with my son? And they're trying to smooth his ruffled feathers, and it's like, it's okay. We just got to tell your son some stuff. The father's drawn even more bulky. He's like as big as the Blob from the X-Men. He's huge. And he's trying to explain shit to the father. Basically, once again, talking about his ordeal in space and how he wants to spare his son that, i.e. him. And the father's like, get out of my house, scumbag. And then young Chance shows this, all of a sudden, his psychic powers are unleashed. He says, no, Dad, you get out. And I think he just means to shove him. But he like knocks the father through the window with his psychic force and all the way out to the yard against this tree. So I guess coming in contact with his future self has made his mind powers come alive. This art is crazy. Oh, look at this. He's using his mind force against his future self, Zero Sum. He's basically just waking out. He's like, what the fuck is going on here? And then Mr. Incompleto now says, you know, they were right. You are the cause of the environmental disturbance, the red mist, even though earlier they said he wasn't, had nothing to do with it. And Mr. Incompleto has a nice heart-to-heart with the kid. He's like, you can control it, kid. You can do anything you want. And the kid's like saying, I'm a freak. I feel like I'm in permanent shock. And he, you know, confides with him, tries to soothe him, calm him down. And it works. He's like, you've given me hope, Mr. Incompleto. And then he remembers his dad. He says, let's go check on my dad. I hope he's all right. So Zero Sum's already out there. I keep wanting to call him Dim Sum. Every time I open my mouth to say Zero Sum, I almost say Dim Sum. And the father, when he got flung out the window, he's like kind of crucified on this tree, on these branches. And Zero Sum is saying, what have I done? Well, my previous self, I just wanted to see my father again. I longed for this moment for 1,000 years. And he's, you know, Zero Sum's telling him, like, you're in deep shock. You've been a victim of a telekinetic assault. You need to go to the hospital. And the father says, why'd you do all this? Why'd you come here to destroy everything? And he says, it was a mistake. I didn't mean it to end up this way. And Zero Sum takes off his mask. Now, if you know anything about like Guardians of the Galaxy and this character, he's stuck in this foil suit that keeps him from dying because he's been alive for 1,000 years. It preserves him from the atmosphere. But he just wants his father to see his face, so he takes it off. And of course, he just starts rotting instantly. Looks like he's on fire here. The Earth's atmosphere is just eating him up. And he mentions that it's faster than he thought. He thought he'd have a little time to show his dad his face, but no, he's dissolving, basically. But then the kid, using his mental powers, the kid version of Zero Sum, he says, I think I can help you. And he uses his psychic powers to restore Zero Sum. We see him here, he's almost dead, all rotted, and then he brings him back to normal. And Zero Sum pulls his hood back down so it won't rot anymore. So they're really sad. They're like, oh, our father's dying there. He won't last. What can we do? And Zero Sum says, there's one thing we can do. Let me erase his presence from our memory. And he's like, okay, I guess that's a good idea. At least we won't be sad anymore. So they kind of both zap each other with mental powers and erase the memory of their father. And Mr. Incompleto is saying, your father's still breathing. We should, And the psychic blast kind of knocks him out for a second. There's a great panel. And they say, where are you going, Mr. Incompleto? He says, don't you remember? I'm taking this guy away. He's hurt. He rips the whole tree out with the father and takes him away. Maybe he still has a chance to be taken to the hospital. And as he does, Zero Sum says, who is he? Because it really worked, the forgetfulness thing. And he says, no one you'd recall. And that's how it ends. Pretty sad ending. Here we have a nice, a bunch of pinups from other artists and Josh Bayer. And on this like little contents page for the pinup area, we have his version of Cyclops and Moondragon. Everyone looks all mutated and weird. Rom, Howard the Duck. I guess this is from his Theft comic because it says Theft on his chest. I don't know. So we have a pinup by Josh Bayer himself here on this page. It's Mr. Incompleto with like Moses, the 10 Commandments, it looks like. Looks like he's in some club or something. This one's even more sloppily drawn than the comic. Like, this is really just crazy primitive art. And then we have, I guess this is Angela Fanch. I don't know any of these artists. This is the first I've ever seen them. A bunch of them are really good, though. Then we have another Josh Bayer. It's a deleted scene. And I guess he put this page in just to introduce us to these, faux Guardians of the Galaxy. And they're kind of roll calling them all, telling us who they are. Nice page, though. Should have left it in. Here we have two pinups from William Test. Very primitive. This is just crazy looking. It's looks like outsider art. Nice stuff. We have Pat Alicio on this page, the left. Nice little action shot of Farhawk and Mr. Incompleto. On the right side, we have John McBurney. And just illustrating that final scene from the story. All these guys, I kind of want to pick up their work. They all look really good. So on the left here, we have a character named Hyena Hell. That's the name of this artist. Showing another scene from the story where Mr. Incompleto is making pancakes for his horse. We have another William Test showing off these Guardian of the Galaxy wannabes. And finally, we have Heather Loase, Loase. And it's Mr. Incompleto getting down with some woman. It's this really joyous, just sexual scene. I kind of like this, the joyousness of it. Once again, I've never seen this cartoonist, but I'll definitely be looking for more. Little Josh Bayer sketch, and we got a little back cover by Josh Bayer as well. Every day is a war on reality. After reading this comic, I think he really believes that, because this comic is a war on most people's aesthetics, but it works, and it's really good. I don't really know why I like it. Well, I definitely know why I like the art. It's amazing, but the story is basically a rehash of some comic he read when he was a little kid. And, I mean, there's not really much to it. Just a lot of insanity and an excuse to draw crazy shit. So that's it, Mr. Incompleto, the color edition. It's in stores now. I just got it yesterday at a comic book shop. So I hope you liked it, and I'll see you next time at the Petixonian Institute of Comic Book Studies.